The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character. My phone buzzed at 8:10 a.m. that morning. The text message I read instantly ended my life as a child. They had replaced every lock on the front door, and the access code for the gate was changed. The message finished with, "We no longer trust you." No discussion was allowed and no reasons were given. This was a digital eviction from the person who once swore I was her greatest joy. I stared at the bright screen until my hand stopped shaking. Then I simply texted back. Noted. That move was smart, but they overlooked one crucial detail. Before I explain that day's events, I need to know, where are you listening from? I want to know I'm not the only person who has been isolated by their own blood relatives. I used to believe that affection was measured by how much you were willing to give or how many issues you fixed before anyone asked. For my family, that kind of devotion paid the utility bills, covered the mortgage payments, and ensured our household silence was never broken. My name is Samantha Jenkins. I'm 32, and I work as an investment analyst in Boston, Massachusetts. For 4 years, I was sending almost $4,800 monthly to pay for a property where I didn't even reside. Everything requiring payment, every utility, every fix, every short-term request had my name on it. My mother called this family teamwork. My father labeled it doing the right thing. I viewed it strictly as self-preservation. My mother could easily turn a sense of guilt into a financial tool. Every single statement from her was phrased politely, yet it always carried a price tag. The ceiling is leaking, honey. It's tough watching your father struggle with repairs. This meant wire money immediately. My sister, 35, had perfected the art of being helpless. She had 2 kids, constant crises, and a tone that made saying no feel like an act of cruelty. Then there was my father, 63, the supposed mediator, who maintained the peace by just staying silent. He never stood up for me, nor did he ever stop them. Once, when a suspicious credit inquiry showed up linked to my name, he quickly dismissed it. He claimed it was just a system error. I truly wanted to accept his word. I convinced myself I was doing good, fulfilling the expectations of a helpful daughter. I was 27 when I co-signed the mortgage paperwork. I was still naive enough to think that true love involved stepping in to help. My mother insisted that trust was the foundation of family, so I covered the mortgage costs. I paid the property taxes, the insurance premiums, and even the cable bill, so my father could watch sports broadcasts. When my sister's vehicle broke down, I funded the repairs, justifying it as necessary for my niece's safety. If she overdrew her checking account, I sent the necessary funds immediately before she ever had to ask. I maintained detailed spreadsheets tracking all those payments, classifying them as temporary help. That specific word used to give me comfort, suggesting I could stop assisting them whenever I chose. However, temporary tends to stretch indefinitely when nobody else is contributing effort. The residence became theirs entirely. The debt, however, remained exclusively mine. Still, I clung to the belief that my efforts might eventually earn their affection. Every time my mother declared, "You're the reason this family is stable," I foolishly mistook it for genuine love. Every time she praised my sister publicly for making sacrifices, I hid the hurt I felt. I didn't realize until much later that trust within our home never meant safety. It only guaranteed silence. Now, sitting alone in my quiet apartment, staring at her message, I finally understood her real lesson. In their terminology, family wasn't about belonging. It was simply about who paid the bills. The whole thing began with one Facebook post. I was parked waiting for a grocery pickup order when the website's algorithm delivered the image to me like a physical blow. My parents and my sister were posed on the porch of the house I funded. The attached caption read, "So happy for our daughter who built a home we can all enjoy." My mother held a small wooden decoration reading, "Home Sweet Home." A gift from Jessica. I read the caption maybe 5 times, expecting my name to appear somewhere. It never did. The comment section filled up with praise. "She's amazing. You raised such a wonderful daughter, Jessica. You are the true backbone of the family." I remained perfectly still, my hand resting on the steering wheel, fearing that any movement would shatter the fragile fantasy keeping me together. Somewhere between all the emojis and compliments, I realized they weren't just ignoring me. They had fully rewritten the entire history. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was a cheerful employee from the bank. "Hi, Miss Jenkins. I'm just calling to confirm a request to change the primary contact on your mortgage account. My heart sank. To whom, I asked. A Miss Jessica Jenkins, she replied. The official paperwork is still awaiting final approval. I ended the call without responding. The pen I was holding slipped, marking a line of ink across my palm. That same night, I checked my account balance and saw the loss instantly. $2,500 was gone. A transfer had been made to an old joint emergency card I shared with my sister. I immediately texted her. Did you use my card again? 10 minutes passed. Her reply came. Don't make a big deal out of this, Sam. The kids desperately needed new shoes. Another text followed, this time from my mother. Honey, your sister is having a difficult time right now. Let's not start a fight over a few bucks. A few bucks? I stared until the words blurred together. The issue was never about the currency. It was about the proof it offered. When my sister required assistance, it was urgent. When I required fairness, it was consistently inconvenient. That same evening, my phone vibrated again with a message from the family group chat. They had renamed it Family Circle. Someone shared a meme of a man reluctantly handing over his wallet captioned Big Sponsor Energy. My cousin tagged me in the photo. My father replied, Got to keep the donor happy. I immediately exited the chat. They added me back with balloon emojis. I left once more. That time, I blocked every single one of them. The following weekend, I drove to the house to cut the grass myself. Paying the landscaper was obviously unnecessary. Now, my mother used to say the smell of freshly cut grass was comforting. When I paused for a drink of water, voices carried out the open kitchen window. My mother's voice was low and satisfied. My sister's was bright and self-congratulatory. Did you watch her face when Aunt Karen brought up the deed? My sister chuckled. My mother's response was gentle but giddy. It's almost finished. Once the papers are verified, she won't have a legal leg to stand on. She signed the loan paperwork herself. It's her problem now. My sister snorted. She's always just been a guest who happens to carry a wallet. Then came the final crushing statement from my mother. She's not family anymore. She's only a sponsor. I stood perfectly still. The water bottle slipped, hitting the lawn and rolling toward the lawnmower. I didn't even try to retrieve it. My body felt empty, like I had been hollowed out, leaving only a shell standing there. People assume extreme anger feels hot. This was not heat. This was absolute ice. Every word crystallized into something sharp and pure. In that exact moment, I stopped wanting to belong to them. I stopped needing apologies or explanations. I only craved control and the clear truth. That night, I didn't shed a tear. I didn't even consider pouring a drink. I simply sat at my desk, the light from my laptop illuminating a tall pile of unopened mail. Mortgage statements, invoices for repairs, receipts with my name printed clearly in the corner. Every document was physical evidence of the deception I had lived. I first opened my banking application, then accessed the spreadsheet I had maintained for 4 years. Line by line, I tracked the expenditures, the mortgage, the property taxes, the roof repair, the daycare costs, the groceries. 4 years of what they labeled help totaled $215,000. That figure no longer frightened me. It actually brought a sense of stability. At 11:46 p.m., I can let all recurring automatic transfers. The next payment was scheduled for the 15th. Not this time. I drafted one brief text to my mother. Noted. That was clever. But you forgot one thing. No emojis, no personal sign-off, just a final period at the end of a 4-year sentence. Then I initiated my formal audit. I retrieved old emails, texts, and photographs, each one a receipt of their entitlement. I systematically labeled folders, payments, bills, messages, audio. When I replayed the voice recording I had accidentally captured through the kitchen window, I immediately renamed the file Kitchen Truth. For the first time in several months, I slept completely through the night. 3 days later, a heavy white envelope was pushed under my apartment door. Inside was an official invitation printed on golden cardstock. It invited guests to celebrate my mother's 60th birthday. A quote shown in cursive script across the bottom. A house is not a home without family. I laughed out loud, and the sound surprised me too. I pinned the invitation to my refrigerator right next to the printout of my massive spreadsheet. They were 2 side-by-side displays, one showing their fiction, the other showing my facts. That same week, I called my grandfather George. He was the only family member who ever talked to me without needing anything in return. When he answered, I didn't even say hello first. They called me a sponsor, I told him. He let out a long breath. Then it is time they learn what happens when the sponsor stops providing. He responded. He was right. I didn't need revenge fueled by anger. I needed absolute precision. So I started getting ready. I printed every single record of payment, organizing them month by month like official court exhibits. I downloaded the audio clip. I saved screenshots of the group chat, the insensitive memes, the laughter, and my father's inappropriate jokes. I even pulled the credit report that showed the system error from the previous year. By the time I finished, my apartment looked like a police evidence locker. I did not intend to confront them yet. I wanted silence to work for me first. I needed them to start wondering why the next mortgage installment never arrived, because I had learned that silence is what makes people finally speak up. When they eventually reached out, it would not be to apologize. It would be pure panic. That is when I planned to remind them that the only thing more costly than their betrayal was the evidence of it. The night of the party, the Boston air felt dense, as if the sky was waiting for something, too. I made sure to arrive 10 minutes late. The grand banquet hall was glowing with gold and green, the colors my mother always chose. She referred to them as royalty tones. Waiters walked through the tables offering champagne flutes. Everyone was smiling in that forced, performative way. Families adopt when they pretend everything is fine. I paused near the entrance, watching the scene. A slideshow was playing on a huge screen. Trips, family pictures, holidays. When an image of the house appeared, the audience applauded. My mother's voice, sweet and full of pride, echoed from the speakers. Built with love, sustained by trust, and now passed down with pride. Trust. The word hit me like loud static. I started walking toward the front. My heels clicked loudly against the marble floor. Nobody tried to stop me. Maybe they genuinely didn't expect me to show up. Perhaps they had forgotten that I never missed a due date. My sister was standing on the stage, holding the microphone, smiling for the cell phone cameras. This home symbolizes sacrifice and love, she announced. We have all worked so hard to maintain it. I nearly laughed out loud. Worked. I wanted to clap for her performance. Instead, I waited until the applause faded, then took 2 steps closer. The mic squealed sharply as I spoke into it. I wasn't planning on saying anything here tonight. I began, keeping my voice level and calm. But since we are celebrating legacy, we should talk about the actual expense. A few heads immediately turned toward me. Samantha, my mother started, a warning tone entering her voice. This is not the time. I raised my hand to stop her. I'll be brief. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small USB drive, holding it up. Could someone please help me play this? My curious cousin plugged the drive into the laptop connected to the projector. The huge screen flickered. Initially, there was only soft background noise. Then my mother's voice instantly filled the speakers. Clear, unmistakable, and cruel. She's not family anymore, she said. She's just a sponsor. Gasps spread quickly through the room. Someone dropped a glass, and the clink of ice echoed loudly. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. My sister turned completely pale. I refused to look directly at any of them. I clicked the remote to the next file. A screenshot of the family chat was blown up across the screen. The meme of the man handing over his wallet. The text beneath it read, "Big sponsor energy." My father's response followed right below, "Keep the donor happy." I turned slightly toward the guests. Here is the true picture of family legacy in our household. Then came the final slide, my detailed spreadsheet, rows upon rows of payments clearly labeled and dated. Mortgage, taxes, repairs, insurance. The total was circled sharply in red. $215,000. This, I stated quietly, is the actual cost of your family's legacy. A profound silence fell. Even the air felt immobile. My mother's face first hardened, then completely shattered. "You are humiliating us," she whispered sharply. I met her gaze evenly. "No, I'm just clarifying the figures." My father abruptly stood up from his chair, his voice aggressive. "You don't have the right to come here and shame your mother on her birthday." "Shame?" I asked calmly. "You mean like when you used my credit rating to take out a loan last year?" His mouth fell open, then snapped shut. "I have that documentation, too." My sister jumped to her feet, her voice shaking badly. It was supposed to be family helping family. We all agreed. I interrupted her. Funny, I don't recall signing any agreement. I was too busy paying all of your bills. A low murmuring spread among the relatives. Their eyes darted rapidly between the projection screen and the faces of my family. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for the microphone. Families support each other. That's what real love is. I stepped closer to the stage. No, Mom. Families show gratitude to each other. Love doesn't arrive with an invoice attached. The room became utterly silent once more. The slideshow froze on the image of a house, its front porch bathed in soft light, the wooden home sweet home sign swaying gently. I stared at it, finally realizing how small that house looked compared to the massive sacrifices I had made for it. Then a familiar voice from the back of the room cut through the quiet. Enough! Heads turned quickly. My grandfather, George Jenkins, stood near the doorway, leaning on his cane, his eyes fixed on the crowd. He moved slowly toward the stage. The sound of his cane hitting the floor was louder than any of the whispers around us. He stopped right beside me, took the microphone, and first addressed my mother. "You raised a thief," he stated softly, the words landing harder than any shout. He turned to my father and a coward. Gasps erupted again. My mother's lips began to tremble. "Dad, please." He raised one hand. "I have heard enough excuses." "Samantha," he said, turning fully to me, "I read your text. You were right to hold your position." The audience hung silently on his every word. "Last week," he continued, "I changed the trust documents. Jessica's name is permanently removed. The primary property and all family accounts are now legally yours." My sister's jaw dropped instantly. You cannot do that." Grandpa ignored her completely. "Legacy is not guaranteed by birth," he said. "It is earned through repeated behavior, and you have repeated nothing but pure greed." The room exploded into stunned whispers and shocked silence. My mother's face cycled from pale white to deep red, then back to white. She looked ready to scream, but no sound escaped her throat. I took the microphone back. My voice was completely steady. "You changed the locks," I said, quoting her text back to her, "but I changed the keys." I placed the substantial stack of invoices directly on the gift table, right beside the wrapped presents. I turned toward the exit and walked out. No one attempted to stop me. Not one person called my name. The doors clicked shut softly behind me, a sound that felt more like absolute liberation than a conclusion. Outside, the night air felt cool and clean against my skin. The city lights of Boston shimmered in the distance, reflected on the water like fragments of something finally broken and finally owned by me. I pulled my jacket tighter and exhaled. For the first time in years, I owed nobody anything. 72 hours later, the notification arrived. Incoming wire transfer, $215,000. No sender name was provided. No apology was given. Just clean, cold, final digits. I stared at the amount briefly, then closed my laptop and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The resulting silence wasn't empty. It had been earned. I brewed tea instead of coffee that morning. No alarms, no incoming calls, no texts asking for just a little help. For once, the world felt balanced. I replied to their lawyer with one single line. Transaction received. No further contact necessary. Then I permanently deleted the entire thread. Later that week, I drove to my grandfather's house. He was waiting on the porch, a cup of tea in his hand, as if he knew I would arrive. "They paid," I informed him. He nodded slowly. "Of course they did. Guilt always pays late, but it always pays." We sat in comfortable quiet for a while before he spoke again. "Forgiveness demands accountability, Samantha. They have not earned it." "I know," I replied. "Peace doesn't need their permission." He offered a faint smile. "Now you sound like someone who finally understands the true cost of freedom." When I departed, the late sun was warm and low, painting the porch golden. I realized peace never announces itself. It simply arrives quietly after all the noise has finally died down. They changed the locks. It turned out to be the first truly helpful thing they had done for me in years. They changed the locks. I changed my entire life. And for the first time, the silence between us didn't cause pain. It felt perfectly clean. I used to think that family was something you had to earn by constantly giving enough. Now I understand that real affection never sends you an invoice. So if you have ever needed to draw a clear boundary with people who share your blood, know this. You are not alone. Share your story below and hit subscribe because somewhere out there, Another person is learning this exact same truth. Peace is not given, it is taken.